All right. Good evening, everyone. Hounds and friends of the hounds. They're going to be piling in soon. Dr. Constance Leland, CJ, Level Up Academy. Remember, just like when they put PB and J in the same jar 20 years ago, I am still talking about it. So thank you. Thank you. Your show today was excellent. How are you doing?
I am good. Yes, Tommy is definitely an amazing hounds. We have a lot of hounds that we highlight. We cannot highlight all of them at once, so we got to do one at a time, two at a time, three at a time. I don't know. It's gonna be party all the time.
Isn't it fun to work with people that you're connected to, you're in the same level, you're aligned with, where your guests, they come to your show, they come to my show, they meet people. This snowball compound effect of people connecting and getting stuff done. I knew he was going to kick butt in 2025. I didn't know it was going to be in the first 2 weeks, right? I didn't know it was going to happen this quickly. Such an amazing thing. Just, I mean, if you were here for the show last week, that momentum is still going. Right. I won't spill the beans, but we've got some really exciting, innovative officials coming to the Hounds next month, right? From Kevin Smith and Kindness Worldwide. And the momentum train is just rolling. So, first of all, thank you for helping us with that show. And I know you made some connections. And see, this is what it's about, guys. If you're trying to build a business and do something special out there, it's hard. Don't do it alone. Don't try to do it without resources and support to push you up, right? That's what we're all about. That's why this partnership exists. And that's why we do these things to make that dream a reality, right? So, anything you want to add before we roll the intro?
No, it's a benefit for all of us, right? That's why I bring people and the hounds and hounds bringing Lua. It's because it makes sense. I was talking to my 17-year-old today about collaboration, and she said it's hard to do collaboration when you know some people are subpar, mom. Like you want to do and finish a project, but you can't because you know they can't do it. And I said, the power of choice, the power of choice, be discerning. And she's 17 and she's learning these things. I am so proud to be in the hound member, right? Let's go, Mike.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's give a shout out. Look, they're already piling in. Mr. Lewis, what a guy. That guy,
Yes.
all heart right there. Yolanda, missed you. Happy New Year, my friend. Thank you for coming. We got
Noni's here.
Noni. Noni is here. OZK Studios. She has got some amazing things on Spotify. Y'all go check that out. Really innovative stuff, guys. This is not just another podcast type of thing. This is heart and soul, right? Combined with it. So, and is that Sarah P? Is that all right? LinkedIn user, y'all let us know who it is. We love this game.
Uh,
Is it Daria? Did I get that right?
Daria, yeah. Hi, Daria. Nice
Hey,
to meet you.
hey, I
Are
can't
you?
believe it. I mess up easy names like Mike and Sam, right? Like that's good. All right. So let's roll this intro and let's get to we have the writing king in the house, y'all. This guy, man, wait till you meet him. All right. You know we do it right out here. So wait till y'all meet Mr. Richard and not only Richard Lowe, but we got Erik Bozeman or Bowman's. I'll get it right. So man, this is gonna be a stellar show. I know. Hey, even a blind squirrel catch a nut every now and then. I get it lucky. So let's roll
That's
this
right.
intro and bring this show.
Bill is here. What's up, Bill? Oh, it is Sarah P. What's up, Sarah? Let's go to the intro,
Yes,
Mike. We're
therapy.
never going to be starting. Okay.
I know it.
Roll.
Daggum.
Are you looking to grow your network and your net worth with other high-level, heart-centered professionals? Then grab a seat and your favorite beverage and join Mike Asherbranner, the Redneck Connector. It's time for the Hounds of Business Community Happy Hour.
Oh, dadgummit. Santa brought me a really nice camera, which I needed, but he should have brought me a chair. I got Dr. Evil's chair. Y'all see me shrinking like 6 feet every show. I'm just ornery. I won't buy it. I just keep duct taping it. All right, I'll send you a picture of my chair if you want to see it. All right, no, I don't know who cares, but you don't have that problem. You had AI. Your AI used to bug out. Remember when you sit still and your AI would just zoom up to your
Oh, yeah.
eyeball for
My
no
AI
reason?
is really trying to zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. I'm like, hey, stop, cameraman. Focus. Like, really? Like, it has ADHD on its own. I'm like, dude, no.
You're sitting
Oh.
still, and it's just like I'm tired of her. Let's go look at the ceiling. Like, what's going on? All right, technology. Well, let's give a quick shout out because I want to get these guys up here. This conversation is going to be a stellar one, and I want the audience. The audience can definitely chime in on this conversation. But we had to give a good shout out to the Colonel himself, J. Scott Heathman, Jeremiah Scott Heathman. This guy, look, one-on-one executive coaching or departments, EQ, culture, getting things done well. He knows how to lead teams, lead people, and get things done. But we already know this, but the guy's the most personable guy, and he is killing it now. He is out there making things happen. Super proud and happy to be a part of Command with Courage. So go to elevatingothersllc.com, elevatingothersllc.com. If you want the realest of the real, that's him. All right. So happy New Year, man. Love having you in the pack. You're a stand-up guy, and yeah, keep on making an impact for businesses. Right. The retention costs are ridiculous. Don't be trying to don't wait for people to leave. Keep them and make more money. All right. And oh wow, I'm not going to go on and on. If you didn't make the show last Wednesday, holy moly, those flames are still going. That ripple effect is not stopping. All right. So thank you, Kevin Smith, Kindness Worldwide, our Kindness Queen, and the Kindness Queen, Kindness Worldwide Queen, Dr. New. Thank you so much for the introduction. You just don't even know what happens when you keep putting good people in the orbit. I mean, massive things across the board are happening because Dr. New cared enough to say, hey, Mike and Kevin might get along, do some good together. Boy, she had no idea that it would be this big. Now we got CJ involved, so you know it's big now, right? So it's going. So we got some surprises coming along the way. This is going to be a really fun couple months. Stay tuned for that. And where is he now? Well, he's finally back in York. Like we play like where in the world's Carmen Sandiego? Like where's Waldo? Well, where's Kevin Smith? Because he's all over the world spreading kindness. And he is back in York, but you know he's not going to stay there. So I will keep you guys posted. This is going to be stellar. And maybe some folks from York will join us soon. I don't know. We'll postpone about it, right? Yeah, we'll see. And last but not least, these two ladies, absolutely model Hounds members, right? They go out there, they push people up, they care about people, they never push, they never pitch slap with a P, pitch slap. And they are going to do a joint webinar. So balance and brilliance, right? So if you're a professional out there, this is for women. All right. Sorry, guys. You know, I'll try to get in, but they won't let me in. So, but hey, when it comes to living in harmony, being your best, business is hard. Life is hard. And sometimes we get unraveled. These ladies have been there and done that, and they help walk people through it. So they're going to have on February 2nd, they're going to have a mastermind. It's free. All right. So don't delay on it. Mastermind, I will post about that tomorrow. So you can go to my LinkedIn at Mike Asherbranner. You go to Hounds of Business or send me a carrier pigeon. I still take those too. Right. And yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal time. Thank you, ladies. April Wyatt, Michelle Ward. Thank you for doing this. Because, you know, right now is about the time where people get really down because New Year's resolutions, even if you don't call it a resolution, your goals are kind of waning, right? And February comes around, and by the time Valentine's Day hits, done, right? So plug in with these ladies and get that great start and really make the most of it this year. All right. So thank you, ladies. So I'll tell you what, without further ado, let's bring them up. What do you say?
Oh, let's go.
There he is. There's the writing king himself, Richard Lowe, and Erik Boemanns. I don't know why I'm having trouble. How are you today, gentlemen?
I'm doing fine. Can you hear me just fine?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'm doing great.
Yep.
And I told you backstage, excellent shirt, man. You need to be a style coach on top of the writing king. Let me tell you.
Oh, okay, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, and then Erik wore a suit, which is great. Yeah, Erik looks the part.
You said it was an amateur event, so I dressed as an amateur. So
I love that.
All right, gentlemen. Well, if you don't mind, you both come from different backgrounds and you connected. So, Erik, let the folks know what it is you've done briefly in your background. You're a CIO, and what do you do today, and kind of what you're working on, the project you're working on, the theme of our topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I go all the way back to the .com days where I was actually doing software development, software architecture. And if you remember all the people that got rich from that time period, that wasn't me. I did not. And so I decided I probably should change careers. I went to law school, became an attorney, timed that poorly as well. So two different points in my life where things didn't quite go as planned, but brought those together in a way that lets me think about technology and compliance and cybersecurity all at the same time, and kind of talk all those different languages. And so fast forward to today, now I'm helping small, medium businesses, startups, people who basically they're starting to get hard questions from their clients, from their vendors, from auditors, insurance companies about what are they doing for cybersecurity? What are they doing for technology? And so I come in and I help them come up with easy answers to those hard questions. I help them figure out what it is they need to be doing, what are they doing, and help them not only come up with a plan, but then I stick around long enough to make sure the plan gets done right. Oh, and then in terms of the writing side, though, we're going to, I'm sure, dive into some of that as well. But along the way, I've been trying to work on a book myself, and we can go into the topic a little bit later, I think, Brett. But yeah, so that is something that while doing that day job, it's like, can I also put together a book and get that out into the world?
And
I love it.
And I'm Richard Lowe. I'm the writing king. I write books for people and who want to help their brand. So different kinds of books that I write. I write for C-levels and I write for coaches and things. And also for I've written a a science fiction book for a rock star, a triple platinum rock star. I've written for one of the lead singers of Boston, if you remember Boston. So I did some stuff for him. And he's one of the few that I can actually mention his name, and because ghostwriters can't. And what you do when you want to write a book is it's to help you raise your up to a new level. So you gain branding, and you one of my clients did a TED Talk. Many of them have gone on the speaking circuit, and they get paid for it. Some of them do it for legacy reasons, so they want to be known. Like older people who want to leave a legacy for their children and things like that. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy writing books, and I'm really happy that I teamed up with Mike just a few months ago, and we're having a great time doing these kinds of events and helping people and doing the magic basically. And I've done a previous show with CJ, and that went. I hope I got that name right. That went very well, and I want to do more.
Yeah.
Real quick. Oh, see, my internet's bugging, so I'm cutting everybody off like I'm rude. Hey, real quick. You said Boston. Yeah, we know what Boston is. This is the right age room for those kind of references. This is the age group right here. But with that shirt and the shirts I saw, you haven't wrote for the Beach Boys yet? I can work on that.
I have not, but I would love to write for Beach Boys or somebody like that. That would be awesome.
I'll see what I could do. Hey, CJ, introduce yourself, because I wouldn't have wrote 2-time international bestseller co-author in BM magazines by myself. All right, so tell everybody what you do, please.
Oh man, this is our people. No need for introduction. But okay, so as far as me, I am a professor. I work full time. I've been doing it for 14 years. Been a dean at 3 different universities, both business, accounting, and IT. And also, I love writing. Publishing probably around 18 books now in the last 2 years. Hoping to do 10 this year on my own. 6 are probably academic, 4 are anthologies, and maybe 2 personal somewhere in there in between as well. I do impact and legacy writing for anthologies for people because I love collaboration. I actually also have magazine. I own a magazine. I do press release rooms. I have 2 TV shows. I do live stream. I do social media that amplify people's messages, regardless if you're an author or a business person, because we need each other to get those messages out there, right? It's nice if we do something for our community, but if no one hears you or no one sees what you're doing, what kind of impact and legacy are you leaving? It's not very much. There's 8 billion people. So that's what we do. We have 500,000 downloads on our podcast every single month to amplify people's messages.
Very nice. And what do you do in your spare time, if you have any?
I play with my parrot. I have a Scarlet Macaw. She's very she would love your shirts. Her name's Chacharita, and she's very spicy. And then I train my 2 English bulldogs. Kind of hard to train an English bulldog when they want to sleep all day. And then my German Shepherd kind of picks up the pack. For
nice.
sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's power. Wow, folks in the comments, hey, we're going to get to this. I want you all to chime in, share it. We'll do our best. If you have questions, we'll do our best to bring them up. So have fun and don't pitch slap with a P, but hey, network, connect with each other, have discussions. It's your show. We appreciate you being here. And if you're not familiar with the Hounds, hey, don't take my word for it. Of course, I'm going to say it's great. Talk to someone in the comments, man. Hit them up afterwards. See what they think about it. Could be a good fit. So let's jump into this. Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, because it seems like every day you add a book or something to your resume, like Tom Brokaw, like a scroll, right? Like CJ. Uh, so you've ghostwritten 52 projects or more under your belt, right? What's the most common pitfall that you see for first-time authors encountering? You know,
They don't get the audience right. So they just start writing a book. They say, oh yeah, I wrote a book on cybersecurity, to pick a subject. And they don't understand that there's 50 billion cybersecurity books out there. So and when I hire a client or a client hires me, we spend the first month trying to figure out who their audience is, what they want, why they want it. We also figure out what the client wants, their who, etc., and why they want it, and go through all the details of that. And you have to know who you're selling to, because you can't sell to everybody. You don't have the budget of Pepsi or Coke or something. So who are you selling to? And then the book is written to that. And that's the mistake that virtually every author makes. They have a great story. They sit down and they start writing it, and it doesn't sell because it doesn't sell to anybody. It sells to nobody. Basically, if you're selling to everybody, you're selling to nobody. So there you go.
That's pretty amazing.
I'm afraid to talk. See,
No.
I'm afraid to talk.
No,
oh my God,
amazing.
no.
Too. Like what? That is something. Okay, so I saw this guy's information. It was like an information something, and he said that this guy has written 70 books on his own. And I think Professor Rao, who's also in India, but he's now in Washington, I think, has written 52 books as well on his own for universities and academia. And I was like, CJ, you're slacking. So I was like, okay, let's do 10 to 12 a year this year and see what happens. But it's not easy, like you said, right? If you're writing something, but it's not selling to someone. For me, I think I have done it where it's a legacy and impact. I didn't know about my great-grandfather and how prolific he was until I read a master thesis of university kids talking about him. And I said, man, I wish I knew him, right? So I was talking to my mom about it. And I said, this would be something that I want to do for the rest of my life, is to write my story, because sometimes you can't write it in 2-3 books, even in memoir, but like just continuously write about your life as much as you can while you're still living. It's not just about learning about, how to code or how to do law, but I'm so interested because you've written 50 books and Erik over here is writing, right? Are you still writing, Erik, or have you already written your story? Like how is it like writing your first book independently? What is it, the most unexpected challenge you face in the process?
So for me, I like to write. I actually have been writing, almost my whole life. My actual undergraduate degree was technically in writing. And so for me, it was that idea that, well, I can write an article, I can write an essay, I can knock those things out. And then I sat down to write a book, and I'm like, wait a minute, a book is 10x, 30x the size of an article, of an essay. And so that whole shift from, it's one thing to say I can run a sprint, it's a totally different skill set and a totally different effort to run a marathon. And so that whole conversion of how do you write, if you can write 750 words, if you can sit down and write in 750 words, very cool. Now sit down and write 30,000 words and have it make sense and have it be coherent and not even get bored yourself halfway through. Because that's the other thing too, is you can kind of keep your own interest in 750 words. You have to keep your interest across chapters and pages. Yeah, it was very much honestly, it's humbling, right? Because of that whole like, wow, I've hit this wall and now I don't even know, do I want to keep going or do I just say stop, give up and go back to writing articles?
Understood. I totally understand that. I have an interesting story that relates to what you were saying, CJ. So when I was 17, the tender age of 17, oh boy, those were a long time ago. I wanted to meet my grandfather, but the family all said, grandfather's weird. He's cranky. He's going to bite your head off. He was a little grumpy, you know, curmudgeon. That definitely fits that word. But I wanted to meet him. So I sat down and started talking with him. And then I realized he told me he started writing a journal. So I said, well, let's finish your book. Let's write a book. So he was my first unofficial, never published ghostwriting project, and learned all about my grandfather, who, guess what? He was in the Yangtze River Patrol before World War II. He was fought in Corregidor. He was captured on Corregidor. He was in the Bataan Death March, and he spent 4 years in a Japanese POW camp. And he told me all about it, which, by the way, is pretty tear-jerking. And I decided, you know what? I haven't been in a POW camp, and I haven't been tortured and stuff. And he can be as weird and as curmudgeon-y as he wants. And gained a lot of respect for him. And it was it kind of fueled my interest in writing a bit, because I got to learn his personal story. The rest of the family didn't care. They just still thought of him as, you know, this curmudgeon-y old man. And we kind of formed a bond. We didn't talk much after that because he was getting older, but it was a big wake-up call for me that there are stories out there that need to be preserved. And it was a lot of fun talking to him. He was actually a pretty cool guy. So segues right into that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mike.
Yeah. So I'm gonna come in with a question, and then I'm gonna go nuts. All right. So this is want to get everybody heads up, right? This don't be shy. It's like a tornado announcing itself, right? So I want to hit this from different angles. Why do executives, right? A lot of us, right? People who are retiring and want to make an impact, or, you know, founders, or, you know, inspirational folks, whoever, but especially executives, right? Why are they so ready to invest in executive coaches, management consultants, you know, all these things, hire top level people? But when it seems like a lot of them hesitate when it comes to investing in personal writing support, right? So we'll talk about why, right? But they want to write a book. Why do you got everybody? Why do you think, why is that shift in perspective? Why is it a hesitancy thing? Or is it, Richard? We'll start with you.
It is definitely a hesitation because they don't understand. They don't understand that a book can form the basis of their whole marketing plan. So it's the foundation. And from that book, you get content. You can get podcasts. You can get on TV. You can get on her show. All kinds of things can happen when you have a book that can't happen easily when you don't have a book, because it gives you the credibility that you need. And what a lot of executives don't understand is that linkage between having a book that gives them credibility and boosts them up a bit. And they just don't understand that linkage between that and their business. And that's one thing I do is in one-on-ones is try and educate them on that it's really the foundation, and it has to be used as the foundation of their career. It's an expensive investment if you want to get a good one, who doesn't use AI, because God forbid, and who will write you a real story and interview you and get down to those stories that will make their readers' eyes pop. And the how did this person get there? How did Lee Iacocca start his business? How did the CEO of Pepsi, one of the best ghostwritten books I've ever seen, he wrote a book called The Other Guy Blinked about the Coke Pepsi wars. I read it like 15 times because it really tells his story. And it's short and it's easy to read. Good ghostwriter. Lots of other ghostwritten books. Basically, anybody who's a celebrity, their book is probably ghostwritten because they don't know how to write. They don't have the time. They just pay somebody to do it. And that's the answer.
Yeah. Who wants to chime in before I go nuts? Erik, do you like to chime in? What was it? You're writing your own book, but you seek advice, and then you've told me behind the scenes. Yeah, it was kind of a big undertaking, right? It's the first time you wrote a professional book. So what is your thoughts here?
Yeah, well, for me, it's one, because I thought I could, to Richard's point, a lot of the people who have ghostwriters, they shouldn't write, they can't write. And so it totally makes sense. If they're going to tell a story, it's going to be through a professional writer. I had this delusion that because I know how to write, I could do it myself, right? And I say delusion because I've learned a ton in the process, and I didn't know what I didn't know at the beginning of that. I think the other part of that too, if we're thinking about executives and why they may be thinking about it, may also go a little bit back to how they want to control their own brand. We talk about if you're hiring an executive coach, that inputs into them, but then they're still projecting out through their actions, through their personal brand. I wonder if they hesitate to hire somebody who's going to be speaking for them at that point. So I don't know if that maybe is another aspect.
Yeah, it comes just down to a lack of understanding of what a book and a ghostwriter really does. I spend a whole month on larger projects to talk to the client and get everything I can about their personality and things, so I can write a book pretending that I'm them. And then we hone that until we've got a book that has their voice, the way they talk. I had one client he swears all the time in his talking. I said, "Do you want the book to swear too?" "Hell yeah." That's what he said. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
so
I got to go.
There's some swear words sprinkled. We kept it toned down a bit because, he still wanted to have an audience. But that's what we discovered during that first month of talking is what's your voice, so that I can try and duplicate that as best I can. And believe me, the client is quick to correct that if I get it wrong. So, which is part of the process.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on the voice, but I want to hear from CJ and her perspective on this. Why is it, from your academic and your practical, viewpoint, why is this a taboo thing?
What, ghostwriting? Well, I
Yes.
think it's a taboo, especially in academia, is because you're supposed to be the professional who knows how to do your research, right? I also serve in a committee of graduates for doctoral programs, and I will know, okay, so anybody can write your chapter 1, your chapter 2, your chapter 3, but nobody can just write your chapter 4, because here's the math part when you do chapter 4 in dissertations. You're going to have to tell us, which is maybe 5 committee members before you graduate, on what are some of your results. And we're going to ask you questions about your results and how you actually started it. What are some of your questions? What are some of your thesis? Why is it a null and void? And if you can't talk to that results, we know someone else ghostwritten your results for you. So academia, I think, is hard to ghostwrite for sure. But anything else in terms of your business, in terms of that, and I really appreciate what Richard is saying about ghostwriting on listening to the client's voice. Often I have seen ghostwriters who want to correct the client's thoughts and viewpoints and change, how they want to form and formulate their thoughts. And so I appreciated that, Richard, that you are the type of ghostwriter who listens to your client's tone and voice. It's not just about the outcome. It's literally the journey of getting there and getting them comfortable with you. So yeah, I love that part for sure.
Yeah, that's very true. By the way, I don't ghostwrite academic stuff for exactly the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's really not quite ethical for academia because they're supposed to have written it on their own, and they do their own research, and it's usually above my head, like by 20 miles. So, so I don't do that.
I do.
I can, but I won't do it. I won't do it for anybody, because coaching someone to go into numbers, and if you don't understand the numbers that you're providing, it's hard. I've tried it with one of the students. He's very good at econ and calculations, but his understanding was not aligning with what his were. So I was like, you're going to have to figure it out on your own, because there's no way that your ethical committee would appreciate me coaching you on the numbers that you did not calculate and trying to coach you to talk to these numbers. But definitely ghostwriting, I think, has its own boundaries and limits. Definitely not in academia, but I've seen someone write their paper using ChatGPT, just like what you were saying about AI. But don't think I can't tell that you're writing in AI either. So yeah, I'm starting to write.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy to tell if somebody's written in AI.
Very cold. There is no emotion. So Mike, I wanted to actually ask, both of these gentlemen are leaders in their own space. This is for both Erik and Richard, but I want to start with Erik. Erik, given your experience, right, from writing, also in IT especially, and also having your JD, writing your first book, like your solo book, what aspects of that process have made you advocate for working with a professional writer? And then Richard, how do your services typically address these challenges? So we'll start with Erik.
Yeah, so I think for me, what the book itself is actually on kind of things that I've learned. It's not my story. It's not my, from that perspective, it is. And it's also not a technical book because, as Richard pointed out, there's hundreds of those and they're wrong by the time you publish them. So I focused on something that I spent a lot of time learning in my career about, effectively about selling, but from a non-sales professional's perspective. And so there's a core of the book where I have lots of stories to tell, and there's ways that, in my mind, and of course I'm the only one who's read it, so I don't have that third perspective yet, but I actually took the last section of it, which was kind of the closing thoughts, had somebody read it, and they're like, this sounds like a college essay. This sounds like you were assigned a writing assignment. You were talking about the AI wrote it. I'm not an AI, but I still wrote it without that emotion because it's like, oh, I have to talk about this, this, and this, blah, here's words. And so coming back to that idea of how do you capture a true story? How do you put that emotion into it? That's a hard skill to go above, especially if you're technical, even if you know how to write, especially, in the academic or the JD space. Lots of people are taught how to write, but not write a story that people want to read. And so that, for me, has been one of those lessons learned as I go through this on my own. So,
yeah, basically, writing a book that people want to read involves putting it at their level. So that's why you need to know the audience. If they're academic, it's a whole different audience than if they're the lay people or they're business people. A lot of my clients come from business people who want to tell their technology to their fellow C-levels, for example. Well, that's a tough thing to do, to convert, say, blockchain or cybersecurity or something like that into something that business people want to read. Because the first thing they think of when they hear a book about cybersecurity is, I want to go to another meeting that's less boring, And Erik and I probably know when we've tried to get budgets, that's very true. Nobody wants to listen to us. So what I have to do is get their stories, not their technology so much as, well, how did you get here? How did you do this? How did you get help? How did you get funding? What kind of challenges have you run into? And then what about your friends and the people in the industry? What stories do they have? And get these stories that then, and add a little humor so that it's not just a dry words. You got to add humor, and you got to add all kinds of personality to it. And that's basically it. You have to give the book a personality, and you want it to be your client's personality as much as possible. But that's what I spend a month with my clients, usually a month or so, going through that and getting their personality so that I can put it in the book. And then that's a lot of talking, but it's a lot more than most ghostwriters do. They just want to do that one interview or two and they're done. So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and let me interject real quick. Amateur versus pro. So this is just me. This is stuff I picked up just the hard way, School of Hard Knocks. And folks in the audience, if you want to chime in on this and share it, please do. And Sarah, we're going to get to your question. I like that question. Thank you. But amateurs versus pros, right? If you look at the Olympics, if you look at any arena, right, you don't find one person who made it to the top of the top, right? The champion of champions by themselves. I mean, just look across the board, right? You don't become a world-renowned attorney by yourself, right? You don't become anything by just popping up and doing it. So here's what I find fascinating. If my tooth hurts, I don't go get the power drill and start playing with it. Oh, I can fix that, right? Like I don't do that stuff. I don't do it anywhere. And think about it, like, yeah, I'm a redneck, but I don't mess. We're not all good at cars. We're not all good at mechanics. Okay, I break stuff better than I fix it. So I don't go in there and play with the engine. That's going to cause more trouble. So that's the common theme that I want people to chime in on is, go explore it. Maybe you are equipped to write this book. Maybe you can do it, but
well, Mike, to carry that theme through, when I look for amateur versus professional, that's why I hired you, and that's why we work together, is I want a professional marketer, because I realized at the end of last year, I'm an amateur marketer. And that's why I wasn't doing well as far as marketing goes. And I said, okay, who's a professional? And then your name jumped up, coincidentally. And I said, okay, thank you, God. That was interesting. And I didn't even take much talking into it. I saw your graphics and I saw your podcasts and all your work and said, yep, this is who I want to go with. And that's the same thing. And a lot of authors are doing their own marketing, and they're trying to get their books to sell, and stop that. Hire somebody, find it, but you got to be careful. You got to find the ones, as Sarah said in a comment, that don't seem suspect. Really trust your instincts. And if you're having that conversation with them in the, you have that first conversation, and if you've got reservations, stop. You've got reservations for a reason, and understand why. Because I think of it this way: when a person's on their first date or their first one-on-one session, they're at their best behavior. And if they're not on their best behavior during that first one, they're never going to be you're never going to see better. So that's the ideal time to judge them. So if you talk to a ghostwriter or you talk to a marketing person and he or she's not impressing you, and not you getting these red flags, stop, move on, get a different one, because your mind will come up with those red flags. And that's how it's that first engagement, because writing a book, you have a long-term relationship. You want a professional book that shows you off professionally, then you better be dealing with a professional who understands you and listens more than talks. So you want to listen to, I like to listen to my clients, find out what they want. I do a little talking, of course, to reinforce the things, but they're listening and they're able to repeat back what they listen. They don't just space it out, and they're not just trying to sell me. Mike wasn't trying to sell me when I went with him. He was just listening to what I needed. Listen. And then he talked. And of course, Mike, he talked. And then, listened a little more. And he says, yeah, I can help you with that. And I'm sure if he couldn't help me with that, he would have told me. And that's how you tell who's suspect or not. You listen to your gut, because they will be on their best behavior on that first call. And if you're getting red flags on the first call, you should be done.
Oh, I want to say something to that.
Please.
Okay, so I have experienced someone that claims to be a ghostwriter who can write, blah, blah, blah. The first thing I do is I look for credibility. I'm a credibility person. Anyone who works with me, I carry your credibility because I have credibility that I've worked so hard for years, right? So I expect they have credibility. So when you shop around, the same thing. It's like going to a buffet, right? There's so many options of food, but why do you pick the food that you picked? Is it appetizing? Is it affordable? Is it something you have tasted before? Is it something that you have experienced before? Is it something new that you really want to taste, right? Those are the things that when we look with our eyes, when you're hungry and you're going shopping for food is a bad idea, because you're going to pick up things you don't need $600 later. And really all you need was like a bar, It's the same thing. When you want something so hard as far as writing your story, yes, they're going to all come out of the woodwork. So look at their credibility, right? Social media, a lot of people goes, oh, I'm not in social media. So how do I know what credible sources can I see about you if you're not in social media? Right. What rock are you living under? Oh, it's a rock of hard knocks, CJ. I have clients who are like that, who's in their 60s, who's in the military, who doesn't want any social media. Then I look at their credibility. What are the trails? If nobody knows your trail and you're supposed to be a ghostwriter, that is suspect to me, right? Because how are you getting business? How long have you been? Which books do you have? Also ask for clients who are willing to talk to you one-on-one. I had this person goes, oh, I can give you money, $2,000 like a month that you pick. You only work 3 hours. All you got to do is give me $500. I was like, okay, give me 3 clients that you work with. And I don't want to text. I don't want to do phone call. I want to Zoom with your clients. I want to look at them in the eye and really ask them questions that no one can really answer but your clients about your services. If they hem and haw, you already know something is suspect. get out. You're wasting your time at that point. Because if they're true to their core, their clients would be happy. Richard is amazing. Richard did this for me because they had that experience, right? So don't spend not even $100, not even $20 on somebody who can't even give you. And if him and Han, they give you attitude like, I don't know if I can give you my clients because, it's a ghostwriting job. And come on, give me a break. You're going to have 1 or 2 clients that will be willing to say Richard is amazing, right? So that's how my thing is. I go with credibility for sure.
And speaking on that, I had a client who was about to go with one of those book ghostwriting agencies, and they were going to charge him a certain amount of money. And he just happened to see me online, and he called me up and we talked, and he relayed to me that why he became suspect and why he was hesitating is they had a bunch of testimonials on the website. So he went through the trouble of researching and calling every single one. Not one had good things to say about him, not a single one. So he went with me, because I was like, "Here, you want some phone numbers? Here's some phone numbers. You can set up Zoom calls with them. Go for it. They're happy to talk about me." And I made sure they were happy. And if they weren't happy, that would be something I would need to deal with, because we want to have happy clients. I mean, if not, we shouldn't be in business. So anyway, you're 100% on mark there. That's perfect.
Oh my goodness, we got to go to Erik, because I want to. This combo makes total sense, because this is the core of what matters the most, right? So there's this kind of subconscious debate of, is it disingenuous, to have someone help or write or even do most of the writing? I think we covered that. I never even thought about it. When I help certain people with marketing and all these different things, I didn't even consider myself a ghostwriter. But I was so good that I could write an email or something, and their own spouse wouldn't know, right? I could write for a 50-year-old lady. You wouldn't know any better, right? Because of that factor. Because I got to know this person like inside and out. We would have, hour sessions and just talk, and it seemed like nonsense. It's not nonsense. And that's the problem. So think about it. If somebody shows up and sees Erik, they see Erik's post, they see Erik here, Erik there, and then I show up to the sales call, they're going to be massively confused. Exactly, right? So it's not just about the book, Erik, right? It's about your whole brand, your reputation, who you are, and the forest from the tree. So what's your take? You're writing this book, you're doing a great job. It was harder than you expected. But when you talk to other people, do you see that maybe, you're too close to the trees? Maybe that's another benefit of a ghostwriter. They can kind of see the aspects of you that you can't see of you. Do you think there's merit to that?
Absolutely. And that's actually something that's true in so many different professions. In fact, one of the things that I even help when I'm doing my work, my day job, it is that third-party set of eyes to say, does what you're doing actually make sense? And so the idea that, we can apply that same logic. And I even said I had somebody else read a part of this that I'm working on, because I knew something wasn't right. I just didn't know what it was, because I was so close to it, because I was like, I could basically recite it to me and my, in my head. I also, absolutely, I think this might be unique to writing. We always, when we write ourselves, we write in our voice. We know what we meant. We know what we were saying. Mm-hmm. Somebody else reads like, I have no clue what you're trying to say here. And so if I were working with Richard, I would say, here's my grand idea. And he would be like, let me ask you a few questions to figure out what it is you're trying to say. And then he could re-say that in a way that actually makes sense to somebody else. Whereas I'm going to say the 3 code words that make sense to me, and that I automatically unpack into the 3 paragraphs that is. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And what I'm going to try and do if we have that conversation is I'm going to take those 3 code words and I'm going to ask you for the stories behind them. What does it mean? What are the stories? How did you come to that conclusion? Etc. Because that's what people want to read, is stories. They don't want to read dry stuff. They can get that from a textbook, or they got it from a college or from a course. You have to elevate yourself over all of that by giving the stories behind it. That's what they're going to want to read. How did your company get there? So that's the key, and is stories. A book should be a collection of stories. I got a whole bunch of books, and I'm busy thinning them out right now, because I open it up and it's like, this isn't stories. This is just dry facts. Library. Send it back to the library.
Belongs to
This is a story.
CJ's Academics. Yeah, this is story time.
I want story. I want stories. I want something about the Spartans and their battles, or about the 300. If you remember that movie, that's a story of the 300 people that died there in that battle, not about the facts and figures. I can get that from the web on Wikipedia. That's one of your competitors, Wikipedia. Your competitor is AI. AI is really bad at stories and emotion. You need to put emotion into the book. So you're talking about these 3 points. What are the emotions behind the points? That should we be afraid? Cybersecurity. There's breaches and things. Should we be afraid of this? Should we be angry at this? And we want to get the reader into the same spot. So one of the questions I'm going to ask you for the book is, what emotion do you want this reader to have at the end of the book? And then for each chapter, I'm going to ask you, what emotion do you want them to have at the end of each chapter? So if you want the person to be angry at the end of chapter 2, but then be hopeful at the end of chapter 3, we're going to write the book around that, the chapters or whatever around that, so that they're in the proper emotion, in the proper state when that happens. Whereas most books don't do that. They don't care about the emotion. They don't spend any time there. But people, as Mike will tell you, based on marketing, people buy based on emotion. People want emotion. That's what they want. They don't want facts and figures. And that's one of the things that makes AI not work very well. AI is not good at conveying emotion, whereas people are. And that's one of the reasons why you want to hire a ghostwriter, is to help you with that. But hire the right ghostwriter. I sometimes get the ghostwriter, like the one I just mentioned, who narrowly avoided.
Eric, can you hear me?
I hear you. Who narrowly avoid going with the wrong ghostwriter. I get sometimes who have gone with the wrong ghostwriter, and it's difficult to rescue them and convince them that I'm actually different, and that takes some time. And I hate it when that happens, because that same as, I'm sure, Mike, you run into bad marketing, or CJ, you run into some bad people who got basically messed up by somebody who was a competitor of yours, and you have to then rescue them and convince them that that was just that person. That's not you. On cybersecurity, I'm sure you run into it all the time, where you run into, oh yeah, they hired this consultant, and they got breached 15 times from here and there. And you have to fix that. And that's one of the, that's important.
It is. Bill, I want to address what Bill said. 600 Scotch or $600. I don't drink Scotch, but I do drink Dom Perignon or Cristal. Bring it this way and we'll be fine. We forget the groceries. Let's just go and put that in. Oh my gosh. Look at that. It's hilarious. Erik, I want to really bring Erik. I mean, we're sitting here with a diamond. Okay, Erik, I mean, the background, I'm just looking at really quick questions there's on your LinkedIn profile. I really want to know what inspired you to write your current book. And I want to know what your book that you're writing too. I'm like on the edge of my seat here. And how do you see like contributing to the evolving conversation around cybersecurity and digital space landscape? I mean, especially with the First Amendment, we could go on with, TikTok banning and all of these and the security issues that they're presenting, on the court. I'm teaching business law right now. But what are you writing?
Yeah. So what inspired me, I'm going to go there first, is I was in the technology consulting company for 12 years. Before that, I had tried to be an independent contractor. So I'd been in the technology space for at least 25 plus years. Honestly, more than that, but we don't need to worry about that. And technology, if you want to learn technology, you'll learn technology. There's books, there's courses. Now there's YouTube videos. You can learn the technology. What you don't learn along the way, though, is the soft skills that go into how do you be a good technologist? How do you talk to customers? How do you build trust? Honestly, that's the theme. If you were to see my book, that I trust is the theme, because it is more than just being technically competent. It is more than being the expert in the room. It is about what we're talking about here, being able to convey emotion, being able to connect with people at a human level. That's the difference between a good technologist and a great technologist, is the human component. And so that's what inspired me to write the book. And that's why the book is not about technology. That's why the book is not about cybersecurity or anything that would be outdated. I'm taking too long to write a book about technology. Nobody would care about whatever I started writing, 12 months ago, because it would be all wrong by now. Same thing with cybersecurity. To your point, though, if we want to change that conversation on cybersecurity and digital landscape, it has to be the faster media, in my opinion, or you have to find a fast ghostwriter who can crank these books out, one or two, every 1 or 2 months. You have to have a faster communication podcast. You have to have articles, blog posts, whatever it is, because the landscape changes so quickly. If you're trying to read something that people have been working on for 6 months, it's out of date. The TikTok ban conversation, right? That is, give or take, a 12-month-old conversation, but with immediate impact. And if you were to read something 6 months ago, it's probably not that relevant. And so, in my mind, 2 different levels of thought, right? How do we take the themes, the humanity, the emotional part of that don't change over time, tell those stories in that long format, but then keep the dynamic side of the conversation in a different format?
Thank you for answering that. And you're right about, if you're doing technology, everything is so fast paced, especially with AI, that it just comes in. With the TikTok ban, actually, because it has the First Amendment. I mean, First Amendment is like since 1800s and 1900s, so it's never going to go bad. It's a conversation always that will take precedence in our law and what we're doing. So I'm going to follow that. I'm going to write something out of that. I always write something in LinkedIn newsletter to have my 2 cents on it, but I would love for you guys to connect with me. I do have to go, so I have to teach, but I love you guys so much. Thank you, Hounds of Business community. Bye, Mike. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Yeah, time flies, doesn't it? Especially when you're having fun. Are you having fun, Erik?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm having fun.
I'm having a
Richard's
blast.
always. Richard has a blast no matter what he's doing. That's why I like the guy. So, man, this has been a great discussion. We're not done yet, but we'll get there in a minute. So I want to go back to something that really resonates with me. You said something where people have bad experience, and I have a mantra. It said, everybody's been screwed by someone, so no one trusts anyone. Right? That's pretty much the tenet out there. So what are some things that you guys learned to overcome that? Right? How do you, is it just your demeanor, your approach? Do you practice, attraction based? Because I'll give you, Richard is disarming, right? He's having a conversation. There's just something you can smell, you can sense about someone who is a seasoned pro. There's a lack of desperation. There's one of these kind of, hey, it's a mutual dialogue. For me, it's, of course I want to see if they will hire me, but they're just as much interviewing me as I am them. It's a 2-way street. It's not, I need this job to pay the bills. It's like, hey, is this a good fit? That's my take. I like to have a good flow conversation, see if we're playing ball, because technically we could work together, but maybe it's not a good personality fit. So what is your guys' take on this, whether it's books or anything else? What's a good way to distinguish that?
Erik, you first.
Sure. Yeah. And that's so true in what I do as well, with trying to help companies sometimes in their most kind of desperate cases sometimes, right? If they're dealing with cybersecurity, if you're not establishing trust up front, then just step away, because it's not going to help anything. But I think you said one thing, having that technical confidence, technical competence absolutely is part of the puzzle. The other thing that I also try to bring to those initial conversations is as much transparency and honesty about how I'm going to help them, what's going to cost, how we're going to work together, so that there's no kind of underhanded, like, well, if you want to know more, go over here. And if you do want to do like anything like that shifts those shifting sands of that conversation, are just not useful. So being upfront, being very clear what it is I can do, how I can help them specifically, how much it's going to cost, who I've helped before. The more transparency you bring to that conversation, the more trust as well. And of course, the final part of that is then deliver. If you're going to say you're going to do something, you got to do it. If you don't, then it doesn't matter how trustworthy you sounded if you're not actually walking the walk as well.
Yeah, that's all very true. Establishing trust, especially after they've been burned, is difficult. And what I do is I want to listen to their problem. And sometimes they just go on and on and on and on. And I don't want them to get focused on the problem they were having. What I want to do is get them focused on the solution. which sometimes is me, sometimes isn't. I've quite a few times said, you need to go to that person there because I'm not the right ghostwriter for you, and that helps build credibility. If I'm not the right person for them, I'm not the right person for them. Like if they come to me and they want to write what I call revenge memoirs, which is a husband or wife, one of them got burned, they want to write a memoir about how they got burned and ripped the other person to shreds, or somebody who had a bad business relationship. I don't tend to do those. So what I do is I say, go talk to Joe Smith, whoever the ghostwriter is. He'd be happy to do those, but I don't. And that builds credibility because that gets around that, I not only was I, being ethical, but I was giving them a place to go to. And I also tell them that I want to have a relationship, that this is a relationship. It's not something that's going to go away in a month. We're going to be together for however long it takes to write the book. For a short book, it might be a couple months. For a long book, it might be a year. And that's a relationship. And we need to talk as adults. If you've got a problem with me, you need to tell me. And I'm an adult. Just tell me what the problem is and we'll fix it. If I got a problem with you, I expect to be able to tell you. And I think the final thing I brought up earlier is listening. You have to listen to their problem or their solution or whatever they've got, with reservations that sometimes they go on and on and on and on and on. So you have to be creative at that, changing the subject so that they aren't talking for hours, and just because especially people who have a story to tell, they'll talk for hours. And you have to be able to turn that so that they stop, but they're not insulted. And that's an art. That's something you learn over the years, because your instinct is just let them talk. Well, while they're talking, anything could happen. They could get upset. They could be pissed off at somebody 15 years ago who did something. Stop them from the talking gently, get them back to the subject. I only have an hour. Can we, that's a good way to, this call is only set up for an hour. We can, let's go back to the subject. Almost nobody minds that. Obviously you don't want to say, shut up. It's not a good way to do that. But that can be tough. No, it doesn't work. Well, it might work with some people, but it doesn't generally work.
Well, here's the theme, and just let me interject a little bit. I learned the hard way. Don't go at this and say, "Oh, I'm going to write a book, and that's just going to solve all my problems. I'm going to get the authority and all of this stuff." You really have to go back and think about your brand, your reputation. You got to have these conversations with yourself, right? It's like it's the difference between everybody wants to market. I want to go to marketing. Well, as Tanya Eberhardt says with Brand Face, she says, "Look, the billboard is marketing. What goes on the billboard is branding." Right? I did the same thing. I came out of a business school and just started marketing. What was I marketing? Confusion. That's what I was marketing, right? So know who you are, right? In consumers, the responsibility on you. If you're a prospective client out there, do your homework on yourself and then other people, right? Don't go into it and say, well, this guy wasn't good and now I'm not going to do it. No, maybe your branding needs to be like me. I know exactly who I talk to, who I serve, who I do not serve, right? And that's why there's I don't have a lot of problems, right? Because I'll tell somebody, hey, we're not the best fit. I'll bring you somewhere who is. And I think to me, it's the highest level of professionalism, right? If you're helping someone in your attorney days, and Erik, and they want a patent attorney and you're a divorce attorney. Yeah, you're an attorney, but that's not the same thing, right? Like you got to say no. And I think that's a very mature, soft skill type of thing, because we have a sea of folks just doing stuff. Really take the time, do your homework, and figure out who you are, and go find the right complement to help you. It sounds simple, but it's highly overlooked, guys. What's your thoughts?
I agree 100%. You have to have the integrity, and integrity is an important word, to be able to know this is not something I want to do. It's not something in my skill set. It's not something, et cetera, and then pass it off to the right person, or just say no, but you shouldn't take it on if you're not the appropriate person to take it on. Or it could be just they're not a good fit. They've got the personality and we're going to clash. That happens too. And I've actually not taken on clients quite a few times because I recognize, no, this ain't going to work. I'm sure you have too. I'm sure Erik has too. Unfortunately, that's one of the problems with working for somebody else in a corporation, is you're stuck with your bosses. And you kind of you kind of can't fire them for the most part. So that's one reason why I became a freelancer. Erik?
Yeah, and I like that you brought up the attorney example, because attorney is a profession that does have a published code of ethics that if you violate it, get caught and be punished, you can lose your license. You can stop being an attorney, right? Most professions don't have that. And I'm not saying that every attorney follows that code of ethics to the letter, but if they don't and they get caught and they get punished, they will stop being an attorney. And so that idea of knowing who your client is, knowing that you can do a good job is baked into the profession, but it's not baked into 99% of the other professions. You can say, sure, I can do the work for you. And the only penalty for doing a bad job is if they start telling other people that you did a bad job, right? Reputation is really the only other guardrail against that kind of lack of integrity. So,
now, interestingly enough, on my website, I have a code of conduct, which anybody can look at, and it has all the rules that I follow for conduct. There's quite a few of them, but they're all there for everybody to see. And so it's my code of ethics, and take a look for it sometime.
Very interesting point, guys, because we're going to wrap it up. We're not going to go to midnight because I can. But it's interesting. I had this convo a while back with some medical professionals, and I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying, listen, the onus is, as someone looking to hire in advance, you really need to do your due diligence. You really do need to think this through, because somebody who gets certified in wellness or nutrition or something like that, or this calls life coach, they might have a 3-month certification, right? Well, somebody who went to school for nutrition has to get a license, and just like Erik said, they're bound by they can lose that license, they can lose the livelihood, and so just keep that in mind. Pay attention, ask good questions, and this is why I encourage little dialogues. This is why Richard here, we got to do a workshop soon, so people can come in and get these kind of things that they need, and if they want more, great, but at least people are armed with that knowledge, so they don't do something crazy. Like, I had no idea that I could not have the rights to my book in CJ. Like, when I wrote that chapter in CJ's anthology, the fine print, Erik, right? It could have said, "Hey, he owned the rights."
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, who knew? But the trust factor that she said, "Hey, no, I'm going to make sure you guys keep the rights and you can utilize that." So that's where all these factors come in: trust and knowing people and doing your due diligence. Don't microwave this, is my point. Take it slow. Don't take it forever, but get in there, find a professional like Richard, start there, and he'll guide you where you need to go. If that's elsewhere, that's elsewhere. That's why Richard's here. All right. So anybody want to chime in before I move on to it?
No, I'm fine with it. Go ahead.
All right. So last question, and then we'll chime in with people. Go to thewritingking.com, scan this QR code, have that conversation. And here's the last thing before I close on is, we don't care if you say yes or no. I know it sounds rough, but honestly, I don't care if people say yes or no. Here's what I encourage people to do. Out of 40 years of being an amateur, know what you're saying yes and no to. Get all the information, right? If you're going to make a decision, get all the information you can before you make that decision. You don't want to make a decision based on half information, right? That's the calling card here. That's why Richard's here. It's why Erik is here. Book a call with these guys, have a conversation, keep going, right? Figure it out from that point. So how is, in today's digital world, all these different things, all of this stuff's accessible, right? Advertising, everybody can do it now. How important is it for especially executives today in their career path, right? Getting a book, career advancement, authority. Is book still the king of that for most executives looking for the authority establishment?
Well, let me give you some examples. One of the books that Ghost wrote, he took my book and he wanted to get the attention of the CEO. Well, when he wound up getting, the CEO wound up writing the foreword to the book. So that was pretty good. He got in the libraries. That was really good. He got on the speaking circuit at $5,000 a speech. That was really good. And then he got $32 million in venture cap to start his own company. Just because he had a book. They can use the book as part of his prospectus or something. I don't know how it works. And then I had another author who did similar. I got an author who did a TED Talk. A lot of them get on the speaking circuit. They wouldn't have gotten those things without books. If you look on TED Talks, a lot of them, I don't think all of them, but a lot of them have written a book about their subject. So if you want to be known as the expert, a book raises you up so that people can see you. Now, of course, you have to market that book. You have to get it out there. That's all. And the book is a marketing tool, so you have to use it. just like a hammer doesn't do any good in the drawer. But if you don't have a book, you have a disadvantage. If you have a book, you have an advantage, and make it as professional as you can. Don't skimp on, you wouldn't skimp on buying a new car if you could avoid it. You wouldn't skimp on a house. Don't skimp on your book. It's a major investment. It generally is tax deductible. Ask your accountant. I'm not an accountant. But if you do it, you have that additional credibility. And that's what you want, is the credibility. That's, you put the time in there. You've got your stories in there. You've got the all the if, ands, or buts in there. And that's what it does for you.
Yep. So you're saying, oh, you did. Don't buy the 3-wheel car. Right? That's not where you cut your budget, right? I get it. Don't skimp, right?
Same with cybersecurity. You got to spend the money to do it right, or you're going to get breached. And Erik can talk all about that all day long. I'm sure that people like me, I had my bosses cut my budget many times for cybersecurity, and guess what? Didn't come out well. I'm sure the same could be said for Erik, which I'm going to let him talk about.
Yeah. Well, I was going to answer the question about the book, because even before I knew Richard, I was going to lots of different executive events, and that was absolutely a thing you would pick up on fast. Is here's the executives who have gone through that process. They have a book. They have something to talk about. I don't know how many people I met who just handed me their book. I'm like, look, I have a book. And so it's like, you can have that 30-minute conversation, get a little bit of insight from them, and then at the end of it, they hand you their book, and they're like, if you want to know more, read my book. Exactly. And then, to echo the professional versus not, 90% of the ones that handed me their book, it was relatively professional. Maybe not, bestseller, earth-shattering type of thing, but that 10% that was not was so obvious. And you pick that book up and you're like, thank you. I probably won't read this, because and it could be as simple as the formatting, right? It may not even be the words. When Richard talks about professional, it's not just the words that are written, it's the way it looks, the way it's laid out, the print, all of that matters. And I know we're not probably can't talk about that tonight, but yeah, the whole package matters, not just the quality of the words inside the book.
Yeah, you want it to be professional, and that's super important. It's not just the words.
Yeah.
It's not just the fact that you have a book.
In fact,
quality matters. Do it well. You don't want to have a book that, hey, Erik likes Mike. He thinks he's a pro. I hand him the book and he goes, this guy's, like, it makes it go down. You want your reputation to go up. So better off not doing it if you're not going to do it all in. And that's the whole point.
Let me give you an example. There are two main reasons why a book won't sell. Number one, you're not promoting it. And number two, the cover's awful. So if your book cover, you have to put a lot of time and effort into, and you want to not use AI art or clip art. You want to use real art, because it doesn't look professional otherwise. And you want your book to be professional, and that's an area where you can put in a little investment and make a professional book. And maybe you want some graphics inside, maybe not. And who's your audience? If your audience is smaller, younger people, you might want to have a little more spacing between the words. All these things are important. And the idea is just, you're spending a lot of money to have a ghostwriter write a book. Spend a little more and make it a super professional book. And in our talks, I'll help you with that. That's part of my goal, is to have you have a successful book, not just a book. So,
right.
That's all I got to say about that.
Hey, spot on. And again, very good conversation, gentlemen. We got to have a round two, and we got to get Erik. We got some rock stars in the Hounds for IT and innovative folks that we got to get a show on that, because there's a lot of folks out there that like this combo, and there's a whole lot of things we can address. But I want to go real quick. Susanna Dawn, she said, yes, do your homework, due diligence. She was the editor in the ones that I've done. So the 2 books that I wrote in, she helped me. And I'm telling you, it's just like what Erik said before. I thought it made sense. And when it came out on paper, it said blah, blah, blah. Right? So she's, and don't get your feelings hurt, people. At first, it's like, what? But listen, I don't want to be right. I want to be effective. I want my message to impact somebody else's life and make something happen with this. And that's what these guys have in common. So on that note, Richard, where can folks find you, and any final thoughts that you want to share with folks?
Well, they can find me at thewritingking.com. And on The Writing King, there's lots of links to set up a a one-on-one. And I love having one-on-ones. I love the discussions with people about their careers, even if they don't turn into anything. They're always fun, learning about their careers, their lives, whatever. So you can just go straight there and set up. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Richard Lowe Jr. And you'll see my handsome picture on the little profile and connect with me. And that's awesome. And any final thoughts? If you want to really be a professional and stand out above everybody else, if you're a coach, if you're an entrepreneur, a C-level, whatever, you really need to consider a book, whether you write it yourself or you hire a ghostwriter. And if you're going to hire a ghostwriter, don't go on the cheap end. Just like if you're going to build your dream house, the house you're going to live the rest of your life in, you wouldn't go with the low-end contractor. You just wouldn't, because that would be stupid. You're going to go probably with the middle contractor. You're probably not going to go for the high end, but at least the middle. And that's my pricing tends to be the middle. So go professional. Go get the real people who will do it for you. Not going to use AI, and going to use real quality work. And that's very, very important that you do that. And write that book. And if you got to start, I also offer coaching. So if you get to me and you buy a few hours, I can coach you on all of these things, how to start your book. We can spend a few hours brainstorming and figuring out your subject and figuring out anything else. Just schedule that call, and then we'll decide what the best way to do it is there. We don't have to jump straight into writing a book. We can jump into brainstorming and figure it out, or figuring out who that audience is. Is there an audience for your book at all? That's more than just your mom and dad and a couple of compadres. We'll figure that out. And that's what you could buy some hours to do that.
Yeah, see that right there. See the difference between a medical doctor and a pharmaceutical salesperson. Right, you're trying to diagnose and do right by the folks. You're not just trying to sell books. And also, I like the fact that you could just go to the top echelon of the pay scale, but you really like working with people in that can afford that middle ground, and that's your passion. You don't have to, you choose to. And man, if there's Hounds material, if that's the Hounds mindset, that's it right there. You're doing it because you want to do it.
Final note, you're asking the difference between a professional ghostwriter and an amateur ghostwriter, or how to find the good ones. The good ones it's their passion. And same with technical field. Erik is what he does is his passion, and you can tell. And if you don't feel that passion in the first interview or two, then that's not your ghostwriter. Oh yeah, I'll write your book for you. Yeah, of course you will. You take my money, but he's got to have the passion, Right. So there you go.
Well, Erik, share anything you want to about your book, what folks can go out there and tap into, and what's your final thoughts on this, and where can folks find you and tap into your service and books?
Yeah, so absolutely the easiest, best place to find me to reach out to me is LinkedIn. If you see my name, ErikBoemanns, the link on the screen, I'm the only one on LinkedIn with that name, but also I'm the one with the Ready to Help banner, because that is true. I am ready to help. And when I say that, it's not just the paying clients. Obviously, we all need paying clients, but I'm happy to have that conversation with somebody who's, again, if you have those hard questions about technology, if you have hard questions about cybersecurity, and just need somebody to reach out to and say, what should I do? Who do I need to help me? I'm happy to have those conversations just to figure that out. Maybe it's me, maybe it's not, maybe it's, whoever it is. Let's figure out who it is so that you get the help you need when you need it and can get back up and running quickly. The kind of closing thoughts from this conversation, I think we talked a lot about, if you are trying to be in the world, if you're trying to sell your services, right, be truthful, be trustful, and make sure that you are bringing some, you said passion, some emotion, some energy to those conversations. And likewise, if you're trying to purchase, if you're the buyer and trying to find the right partner, trust those instincts as well. Trust that inner voice that says something doesn't add up here, something we're not clicking, we're not connecting. Let's figure out why, and maybe walk away. So those are my parting thoughts here.
Hey, spoken from true heart and experience. And I'll share this. I had someone a long time ago. It was just so funny. We went through all of this stuff. I'm the same guy everywhere I go. Church, it doesn't matter. And then somebody finally, hours after all this, said, well, I wonder if I want to align with the guy who calls himself the redneck. It took everything I had not to say, let me make it easy for you. No, like, I wanted to be kind about it, but really, like, it's not like you didn't know who you were getting involved with, and so, but having the courage, that's not an ego driven. No, that was a fair, very mature and helpful thing. This person, this would have been a bad deal for everyone. So having that responsibility, putting people first, means saying no. And let me tell you, when I said no to that, because we all do, sometimes we need to pay the electric bill a little bit more than other times, right? Or we're trying to do things and become independent. But I tell you what was fun. When I said no, because I knew who I was and I knew it was the right thing to do, I got 2 clients out of nowhere that way, right? So, hey, I'm not going to push karma on you or nothing, but I'm telling you, because I said, instead of doing this, I'm going to go out there and make sure I shore up my message, put my message out there, do the things I can control. And it came like that. So, hey, we had a great discussion on multiple things. If you're looking to write anything or a book and try to up, that game and get that authority, Richard Lowe, the writing king. All right. I don't just put anybody up here. So in fact, he's the first and probably the last that's going to be up here for a while, other than CJ, because I trust this guy. Erik, you're a stand-up guy. Appreciate you bringing this out. Do us a favor. Keep us posted about this book. All right. Because the Hounds love good books. They want to learn from the best. And we'll get that out there with you, brother. So all the folks in the comments, hey, thank you, Hounds, friends of the Hounds. You are the best. Seriously, week after week, it's late. You're here with us all the time. And that's a testament. Business is hard. Don't do it alone. All right. If you need that visibility, some resources, get that impact out there. Right. We have people that are making serious dents in cancer survivorship. These are regular people who just got together and made it happen. How? They didn't know how. They just did it, and they did it together. All right. No joke here. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to get off the soapbox, but I want to see people's lives change, and that's why we're here. Thank you, gentlemen. Hey, next week we're going to have a stellar show. We'll put that out there. Those ladies again, guys. Hey, this is no joke. All right. They will be joining us next week. Cannot wait to see them. This is going to be stellar, fantastic show. Hey, business is hard. Do it less stressfully. That's all I'm going to say. All right. We'll see you on the next one. Bye, everybody. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank y'all for stopping by. Be sure to follow, share, and like, and send me a message if you had fun today. Y'all come back now.